have a pen. Yep, I do.
I just have to tell everybody with the application before us tonight, we only have 4 members, and if it's a tie vote, it fails. So you do have the option of postponing for another month. Most of you have been postponed for 2 weeks waiting for this meeting. But with the lack of a 5th member here, if it's a tie vote, your motion will fail.
Mike Foot is in the building.
We've got 5.
All right, let's start the roll call. Scratch that last tie vote thing. Since we have 5 members here tonight, there won't be a tie vote. Roll call, please. Roland?
Roland Mayhew here.
Richard? Jane?
Jane's here.
Mike Foot? And myself, Mike Dellavecchia.
Katie.
Staff in attendance?
Kathy Manisi, the planning director, and myself, Scott Pelchat, will be your recording secretary this evening.
Thank you, Scott.
Could I have a hard copy, please? Thank you.
First order of business is an extension for Watson Road. Is the applicant here? Come on up, sir. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, that's Dan Mueller and Roger Mueller.
I'm familiar with the project you have going there, and I'm just curious, is 6 months enough of an extension?
No.
What is happening? Fill us in.
We're just moving along. We've got, working on engineering. It's been going slow. It's just everybody's so busy. We're doing cleanup from our logging operation. It's been kind of a wet summer, so it's been a little trying to get out there when it's more dry, and talking to well drillers and just going through the slow process.
Okay. Kathy, is a 6-month extension the most they could ask for? I thought we granted a year extensions.
I thought it went 6 months.
Only 6 months.
That's my recollection as well.
Planning board.
I know last time we talked about it, was a little bit of debate back and forth, and ended up being 6 months. I think that's what Dean said, it was
Yeah.
6 months.
Okay.
We'd love 12 months, but
All right. Yeah, it was a tough summer.
Yeah, pretty wet.
now it's over.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members for these fellas?
Is 6 months gonna work? Going through the winter?
We're hoping at that point we'll be done with all our,
Okay.
hopefully with our permitting, and then we can actually get started, and it depends on the winter with actual construction, but
Okay.
I can see us probably being here 6 months for another extension.
And that's fine, that's fine.
Very good. Dan and Roger, you have a seat. Any discussion amongst the board?
Fine.
No? I don't see any reason why we can't go ahead and, I'm looking for a
Don't
motion.
you have to ask the people?
Oh, members of the public, thank you, Ray,
You're
Jane.
welcome.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak for or against this application? As Steve Bogart would do.
I move we allow the 6 months extension.
Thank you, Roland.
I
Second?
second that.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor? Extension granted. Good luck, folks. Build and they will come.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. We omitted doing the acceptance of the minutes from the last
Didn't
one.
we,
Oh.
didn't we do that at our short-term meeting last,
No, we
2
didn't.
weeks ago?
No.
No, because I would've had a correction.
So, before we go on to other business, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes
Last meeting.
from
I
the
have a-
September meeting?
I have a question as it occurred. I thought we had nominated Marcia Hayward as the vice chair, and I was going to be secretary.
Right.
And so it just is different here.
It got flip-flopped?
Yeah, I was under the assumption that it was reversed.
The other way.
So either or, just as long as we discuss
No,
it.
You don't mind, Vice Chair?
Sure. Whatever you guys want.
Well, no, if Marcia was nominated,
Yeah, and
we'd
that's
have
it,
to.
and that's what it was. At
Okay.
least
All
leave
right.
that spot for a review when she's here.
We just got it
Give her,
flip-flopped in the
yeah.
minutes, all right.
Chance to defend herself.
Any other issues in the minutes? Motion to accept?
I would like to accept it with the notes that Mike just gave us in terms of correcting.
Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome. Anyone want a second?
We have a
I'll
motion?
second that.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Accept the minutes as corrected. Thank you, Scott, for that. All righty. Moving right along. We have Endicott Street East.
No,
No, that's been taken off.
Jameson
has been
Street.
removed from the agenda. They withdrew their application.
That's easy. Okay, then we have 11 Jameson Street. There's 2 variances and a special exception.
Do you want us to talk into the microphone?
Please.
Yes, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay, just making sure. Just give me 1 second, please. It's always weird when you're using a different computer. Okay, my name is Carmen Lorenz, and I'm the Executive Director at Lakes Region Community Developers.
And I'm Becky Bryant, and I'm the Executive Director, CEO at Lakes Region Community Services.
We have another supportive housing project that we are working on. This time, we're up at 11 Jameson Street. And in this case, yes, we have 3 applications before you. They all go together for this one project. I thought I would start by just giving an overview of the neighborhood. 11 Jameson Street is outlined in the yellow there. It's up on Avery Hill in that neighborhood. Most of the abutting properties are actually multifamily buildings that we own and operate. We have our Millview Family Housing apartments. The upper part of that development is up there. So we have number 5 Jameson Street and then 2 buildings on Locust Street. And then on Luigi Court and Avery Street, we have 6 or 7 other, 7 other buildings in the Avery Hill development. In this case, we purchased 11 Jameson Street. Here's just the same view that you have, I think, in your packet. We bought the house in May, and it's a pretty small site. The building is a little odd. I've got some photos included in your packet as well, because the building's like perpendicular to Jameson Street. But it's a little more than 1,500 square feet. Single-family house. It's got 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. There's enough parking. Depending how you do it, you could fit three cars there. You know, if you park creatively, you definitely can fit 1 to 2 vehicles pretty easily. And again, the neighborhood is primarily made up of other multifamily buildings. So when we were looking at what to do with this building at first, we thought we would just renovate it and use it as a 4-bedroom rental. We don't have a lot of 4-bedroom units in our portfolio, so that idea was attractive to us. But we've also been working for a number of years with Lakes Region Community Services to try and do supportive housing that would be for some of their clients. And so the more we looked at the building, the more we thought this actually would work better for that, because if we were going to use this as a 4-bedroom, we're talking about probably having, you know, anywhere from 6 to 9 people living in the house. In our experience with units of that size, you know, definitely 3 vehicles probably. So then we were a little bit concerned about the parking. And we thought that this might work better because if we are working with Lakes Region Community Services, they need small, one-bedroom units that are a maximum of just one individual living in each unit. So in that case, we would be talking about just 3 adults living in the building, no school children. These tenants don't drive, they don't have driver's licenses, so that alleviates some of the parking concerns that we had. And we would be making a long-term commitment to using the building for this purpose. With our funding that we would apply for from New Hampshire Housing, we would have a 30-year land use restriction, so that we would be getting supportive housing funding from New Hampshire Housing, and in exchange, we promise to use the building as supportive housing for 30 years at least. We would also be perfectly happy to sign a longer-term agreement with the city if that was desirable. We do that kind of thing pretty regularly and have no problem with that. So in our mind, in looking at this, it felt like the zoning ordinance would actually be, the spirit of the ordinance would be better met if we were using this as proposed, because you've got lower density, you don't have to worry about the parking, less pressure on public services. So that's kind of the overview of the 3 applications that you have before you, and I asked Becky to come tonight so that she could talk about what they do and the type of housing that they're looking for their clients and why, and just give you a little bit more information and background on that.
Okay. So I don't know how familiar folks are with the services that we provide, but particularly in working with young people who experience a developmental disability when they're looking at what they need after high school right now, that is what is missing really from our portfolio when we look at residential services as a continuum through someone's life. Life after high school is very isolating for the young people that we support. And since the closing of the institution, they've really only had limited options, and that is you can stay home and live with your parents as an adult, you can live independently in an apartment, you can live in an adult foster care family, or you can live in a 24/7 staffed residence. So participating with Lakes Region Community Developers and others looking at the supportive housing model, that's the model that we've been trying to get off the ground, where a young person can actually leave high school, live independently, pseudo-independently in supportive housing, and have the supports wrapped around them that we have at Lakes Region Community Services. Right now, those that choose to live independently struggle with really high eviction rates and homelessness, poor health management and health outcomes, lack of socialization because of the isolation, and a lack of access to continued training around the skills of independent living, which are all things that, that we can provide in the supportive housing model. In that model, our plan is that residents have a case manager as well as services to transport. So these individuals are either coming out into the community for a day program or community participation services, as we call it now, supported employment, all of their appointments, volunteering. They're assisted by Lakes Region Community Services in all aspects of their life, from budgeting to bill paying, grocery shopping, meal planning, all of those skills. In addition to that, being taught good tenancy skills. Some might have the desire eventually to move out into even more independent living, and some might need to stay in a supportive housing model through most of their lifespan in order to be successfully living on their own. So I thought it'd be helpful if I gave you a profile. I know sometimes when something like this comes up, people don't really have an experience, again, because it is also new to the service delivery system. So it would be an individual who experiences a developmental or intellectual disability, and for us that is defined under New Hampshire RSA 171:A. These individuals that would be targeted for supportive housing are ambulatory. They do not require assistance with the activities of daily living. So unlike our 24/7 staff residences or living in adult foster care, they don't need help getting up and getting showered and getting dressed, and they are not requiring the use of a wheelchair just by the nature of the design of the kinds of apartments and homes that we're going to be able to find for supportive housing. A component of it is required that they actively engage with us for services. Our services are voluntary, but in order to live in one of our supportive housing units, they're going to have to engage with us as part of that agreement. And again, the expectation is not that we're sitting home all day, but that just like any other young adult, you're expected to have a job, maybe going to school, maybe having some supports in order to do that, but that you're getting up and going out and having a productive day. In addition, we are going to be hand selecting with our case managers individuals that we already know demonstrate the ability, and not just the desire, the ability and the desire to live independently, which is something that our case managers are capable of assessing with who's on their caseloads. And in addition, you know, Carmen mentioned the parking question is one that always comes up, but our individuals, I actually looked it up today, I did the math, 0.02% of all of the individuals we serve in Belknap and Grafton County have a driver's license. In general, our individuals don't maintain, they have a non-driver ID, they have Medicaid and Social Security and in place in order to pay for their services and their benefits and their housing. So, that's all I have.
One question, Becky, is, when you say you engage with them, is that like, do you meet them once a week, for a counseling session, or is?
It's very individualized. We have something called person-centered planning in New Hampshire, where it is incredibly individualized as to everybody has an independent service agreement, an ISA that says what they need. So in addition to the case manager is required by the state once a month, we require higher contact than that. And then the staff, so if they have supported staff that takes them out into the community, that can be daily.
I see.
I have a question. You say they're all young adults, so that is actually who you are aiming to place here?
It is who we're aiming to place in a sense, but I use young adults loosely. So again, they have to demonstrate that they do have that skill set to live independently. It definitely is the growing need, but that does not mean we don't also have 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings that need the supportive housing model. The big thing for us that we look at in all of our programming is that we do look at the profile of the individual, and we try to make sure that people are going to be good housemates, or good, in some of our programs, have to be good roommates. In this situation, we would not put 3 individuals together that we did not have a strong feeling were going to be good housemates in one home.
So they all have case managers
Yes.
and guidelines that they need to follow, curfews. They can't have people over to have like 6 people in their apartment, or,
Those would be all taught under the tenancy and enforced with their case manager and our tenancy agreements. However, I will say, under state law, we cannot restrict. You can't take someone's social security room and board to pay for their apartment, and you cannot restrict. They have the right to have visitors. But again, our goal in this program is to avoid the evictions that happen when they exhibit those behaviors when they're completely living independently. So the,
Yeah. Well, and just to complement that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So every individual that would live there would be a tenant of ours, and they would have a regular lease, just like all of our other tenants. And they would have to follow our resident handbook. So there's all sorts of rules about all sorts of things, you know, what's allowed and what's not. And if someone's found to violate, you know, the terms of their lease, typically what we do is we issue a lease violation. And in this instance, because they're working with Lakes Region Community Services, we would also let them know what may have happened. In reality, they're probably gonna be the ones to let us know what's going on, because they're gonna have pretty much daily contact with everyone. But yes, the expectation is that they follow the same rules as any other tenant that lives in our apartments.
and the success rate that you have overall is strong?
So we are starting small on purpose. So supportive housing is something that Carmen's organization and mine, we actually went through the Supportive Housing Institute together, right in the middle of COVID. It ended in the middle of COVID. And so this will be our first supportive housing model. We've actually been trying to get, the supportive housing model actually encourages to have a higher number and have a manager living on site, and we have not been able to find a location for that. So we're doing the 3-person location where it's in proximity to all of our services and all of our staff being right on North Main Street.
Thank you.
Roland, Richard, any questions?
Not for her.
I have one question.
Sure.
If you do have to put somebody out for cause, where would they go?
We would be required, because they are in our services, our case manager is then required to find them a new place to go. What it would tell us is that they were not successful in the supportive housing model, and they would go into one of those more restrictive models that we've been doing for 50 years.
Very good. Mike, anything?
Yeah, one question, separate entrances for each unit?
Yes, yep,
A common stairway, if I saw that correctly?
correct. It would
Right.
be like any other apartment building.
Understood. And what is your intention for that walkway and stair system that goes down to Union Street? What are you going to do with that?
That's already been removed. We worked with the city back in 2019 and took
Well,
that
it's not
out.
removed, it's still there, but it's blocked off only.
The walkway was removed, yeah, and it was replaced. They put some riprap in there.
And there's some steps right at the back side of the property.
I don't know if the steps are still there, but
They are.
the walkways, yeah,
So
been taken out.
people are kind of using it still. So,
That's actually a city easement sidewalk.
right. Okay.
Okay, ladies, if you want to sit down. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak for or against? Sir, state your name for the record, please.
My name's James Poisson, and I'm definitely against this project, all the special exemptions to it. This whole thing has become a project. The whole, as they can tell you themselves, it's all special needs housing there, except for that house, which, by the way, the group of them have owned since 2003. To say 3 months ago is a little misleading as to when this changeover happened. If you look at the taxes on it, you'll see how it really went. And then you'll find out this is .09 acres, not .33, .9. Doesn't deserve a special exemption. If Kevin Morissette, as a builder, came to you and said, hey, I want a special exemption because I'm developing an area, you'd make him jump through every loop there is. But here we are, because it's a project housing, and that's what this is. What we've got is every house belongs to them all around it, and there's no sidewalks, because Kevin would have to put sidewalks in, but there are no sidewalks where this house is. It's a 2,500, 900 square foot, if you count up all the footage that they're gonna make into the apartments, 2,900. The whole property is 3,200 feet, let's call it, .09 acres. Doesn't meet any of our density requirements. Every single project housing up there has used a special exemption to get that. You can't keep saying to us, oh, we've got off-street parking, and we've got that. I've seen them, I've lived in that neighborhood for 60 years. They tore out a basketball court for the kids to play in to get parking for projects. I went to the doors and knocked on the doors today and asked them, what do you guys think about this, putting a 3-unit in? What are you talking about? Well, I felt empathy, because empathy is when you can feel for them not having any rights, because they're renters. I'm a renter, what can I do? No one's told me about it. But I know Scott sent the letters out to the landlords and the people who own the properties. I know the city did due diligence, but those poor people living there feel like they have no rights, and if they buck the system, they're gonna go. So there's the first thing. They even admit calling it creative parking. There's no creative parking. You can't fly cars on top of other cars. You can't guarantee me that someone's not gonna drive. And every single service, and this is the first one, remember, the first, has to have staff support, and they drive cars. There's no parking on the road. I had to move twice while I was visiting people there, yet it's parking in the road. An ambulance couldn't get by if I was parked in that road. A fire truck couldn't get by if I was parked in that road. We are so far over the density there that this is foolish to even consider. It's that simple. There are no guarantees in life that there's gonna be a family of 6 living there. Let's say I come from Massachusetts and I wanna move here to New Hampshire, beautiful Laconia Lakes region, where the population is much over 38 years old here. I'll just sell my house there, be an empty nester, and move there, and I'll only use 2 bedrooms, and I only need 2 parking spaces creatively. I can park here and there. There's no guarantees in life, and to say that they guarantee it's going to be for people who don't need help or who need help, that just doesn't hold true. We can't guarantee the ages, we can't guarantee any of that. So for multiple reasons, starting with number 1 density and it being already overexploited in that immediate neighborhood, we need no more. They've had this on the books as a plan for 20-plus years. And you can see who owned it in 2003. And they've taken the money they sold it to the people, and they're supposedly moving to Maine, but there are two different names that were staying there on the mailbox. In fact, someone's doing construction because they're sanding asbestos tiles right now. This is the kind of stuff we gotta stop. Put it on the market, let the market bear its weight, let them pay some real taxes for us. Again, their own words. There's a small driveway that can fit 2 cars parked creatively. 3 people coming there, their support staff, which we don't even know what that is, because this is a brand new program we're trying to get through. Does that mean a nurse? Does that mean someone who teaches me how to walk? There's already people parking in the streets on a no-way street on Avery where you can't get down in the winter because of this. You can't get up there. If you're in a wheelchair or a scooter, you are not going down that hill this winter. Can't be done. Simple as that. It's a straight-up hill. Density is what I'm telling you. Don't give 3 special exemptions. Give 0. That's what I'm asking you guys, and that makes good sense. We have a big, beautiful amount of land that we gave to a developer for nothing to start doing something. Let's put in 1,000 units. It'd be like having a state school again. That's what I'm thinking. We really gotta, I truly have empathy, but I had empathy for the working class that were there that I talked to today who didn't even know this was happening. Because the owners who own those properties don't bother to tell, hey, you have a dog in this fight. They don't feel they do. That's apathy, and empathy is what we saw today. I saw it, I felt for them. That's the true story, not some feel-good thing in another Bay Street project. Thank you.
James, your last name is Bisson?
Huh?
Your last name?
Poisson.
P-O-I-S-S-O-N.
P-O-I-S-S-O-n.
It means fish.
And your address, sir?
35 Dixon Street.
Dixon?
Yep,
Thank you for your comments, James.
thank you.
Ward 5.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this project? I'll take it back to the board for some discussion. Aye, aye, aye.
So we're gonna manage each, there's an exception, 2 variances, we're gonna do them all at once, or each individually?
Well-
Do those individually.
All right, okay.
You know, when I first saw this, I'm there, I did a site visit, I'm there, no way. But I didn't realize it was Lakes Region Community Developers doing this for controlled applications.
So I like the idea of the whole thing. So there's 1 parking, I mean, it is a small lot, there's 1 parking and there's no parking on the road. And it would just have to be that they have to honor that 1 parking space for either service or support.
Now in the photos here where the blue shed is, it looks like you could fit 2 cars side by side just
Possible,
about there.
right.
On the grass.
So I'm just saying that, what the people are saying is that nobody has a driver's license.
Well,
So
it's tight in there,
it's
I
tight.
understand that.
So I'm fine with the variance for parking. And it just, the people that don't have it. And this is a need of people that are not mobile. you know.
Yeah,
And every building in that road is a multi-family similar setup.
I visited the other property on Summer Street where they have 8 units, and there's 1 person in the 8 units that has a car and a motorcycle.
And that's it.
So I understand when they say parking is not an issue, and we should not use parking as an excuse
For sure.
to deny
For sure.
in this case.
Right.
Not every case, but in this case, I believe Carmen and Becky when they say their tenants don't drive.
Right.
And it's an ideal location right by downtown. Couldn't be a better use, if you ask me.
Well- So I'm in favor, philosophically I'm in favor of it. My father's in the same place. He doesn't drive, he's immobile. To find housing for him where he lives was impossible. Impossible. So
question.
Please.
Or- When you say developmental disabilities, are we, talking, I don't see any ramps or, other access? Or, I mean, are these wheelchair types, is it?
No, this would be people who are ambulatory. We specifically have to target, and we know that, when we have different building types that we're in. We run 24/7 community residences throughout Laconia, Belmont, Plymouth. Those all are accessible. So if somebody needs accessibility, they are targeted for a different format of housing. But for us, for this for supportive housing, it will be folks who are ambulatory. And if for some reason somebody becomes, we can all become, I can become non-ambulatory when I leave here and try to get down the stairs. If they become that way, then they would just simply have to, I say simply, but again, it's the same question that this gentleman had. We would then look for a different housing model and have to move them.
Could we ask that if people want to speak, they come to the podium and address the entire room? I'm sorry,
That we-
should have asked them that before.
I'm sorry, Roland, I should have had Becky approach the podium.
I don't see anywhere in the application where it's making any specific request for the type of disability that's inside the home. I don't see that anywhere. She said it verbally, but.
Right, but they know somebody in a wheelchair can't get up that
Yeah,
hill.
For sure.
So they wouldn't rent to somebody that's wheelchair bound, I hope.
Electric.
Another, and it's,
I just want to address that. They did submit a letter with their application that explains the proposal in detail, and they do identify individuals with developmental disabilities as the beneficiaries of the property.
sure, but they didn't specify what developmental disabilities they were. They just said that they were, they didn't, they didn't say ambulatory, non-ambulatory, they didn't say anything, they didn't clarify.
Well, that would be a physical disability versus a developmental.
Sure, I understand, okay, yep. Another thing, Mike, that I would like to manage is this right-of-way. So off the back side of the property, if you look on the,
I did a site visit there, but I didn't get out and walk around.
so right where the blue tarp thing is, you can just
Yeah.
barely see it. There is an old concrete step that goes down, and on the city tax maps right now, there is a 10-foot right-of-way that goes down, jogs over, and then goes all the way down to Union Street. And it is used, it's kind of derelict to a degree, and I don't know how we would do this, but, does that 10-foot right-of-way need to be there, or what's the reason for it? Why did the city put it there? And if it's not being used and there's no use for it, can we hit that right-of-way off?
I would think the whole neighborhood would be using it for a shortcut,
Yeah,
but
it's no longer usable.
Right.
it's not.
So it's unsafe, really.
Okay.
And it's kind of unsafe, not just from a mechanical perspective, it's in a deep, dark little corridor that goes down through the woods. But I'd just be curious if the city would take the right-of-way away.
Because this is a multifamily, if they're granted the variance, they also have to go to the planning board for
Ah,
site
okay,
plan
okay.
review.
All right,
So
So we could put-
that's an issue
we
that
could put that
the
in our notes.
planning board
Sure,
could
okay, I'm comfortable with that.
address.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
So, I'm getting the feeling that we're in favor of this.
What do you think, Mike? Where are you?
I'd like to speak to the board.
Well, James, you had your chance at the podium already.
Thank you.
Because we're leaning towards acceptance, you can't run back here and say,
No, but I have pictures, so you could see something that wasn't presented from their input.
I was up there, James, and I did a site visit, it was 2 weeks ago, and it's tight in there.
What do you do about the sidewalks? There are no sidewalks. These people are.
It's a dead-end road, there's not many cars driving by.
Dead-end road. That's a through street. 100% through street.
That's true, it is.
Am I mistaken that it's a dead end?
It's not dead.
It isn't.
It is a,
Why did I back out of there then?
Because you couldn't get around the cars in the road?
the board received input from the public, and it's improper for him to speak in the way that he is right now.
Thank you, Richard.
Can I ask a question?
Please,
Is that a approved city street, Jamison?
it's not on the map.
Well,
That means they don't plow it, they don't maintain it?
Kathy, Scott, do you,
I could reach out to DPW tomorrow.
I think it's pertinent.
where does it come out on the bottom?
They both dump back out onto Avery. You can enter through Avery, you can come back out on Avery.
Almost down the ball one, yeah.
It's a half moon that, there is that quadplex that has the parking lot attached as well, so.
so on the city tax maps, there is, that Longe Court, or Longy, Longe, je parle français, and Locust Street, and it's connected, and on the tax map, it is lined by red, Scott. And I'm not sure I don't know if I've seen it noted this way anywhere else.
Usually a red is an easement of some sort, so.
Right. Yep. Well, there are multiple units there, so somebody is doing the clearing in the wintertime.
Yeah, I can't really tell from that. Sometimes they
Right.
mark it.
Well, the GIS tax maps are usually pretty up to date.
Are you looking at this tax map here? Because it looks like the property comes out into the road.
Yeah,
That's what I was looking
Yep,
at.
yep. So it very well could be that there's a right-of-way, but that would be a question to ask. You know, they're gonna, well, I would leave it this way. If we approve the exception and the two variances, they're gonna have to go before the planning board, and the planning board is gonna deal with that, right? And if there's a flag on the planning board, they're gonna.
Mr. Chair, it's listed on the GIS as Jamison Street private right-of-way.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's why they have the variances, so they've got a right-of-way.
This is private.
There you go, right, there it is, yeah, you saw it. I can't read writing.
All right.
So I do think the planning board would pick up on that, and they would do their own evaluation on the mechanical parts of the road.
Well,
Strange neighborhood.
Mr. Foote, what are you thinking?
He's thinking.
I am thinking that I have not stood right there, and I am less familiar with this neighborhood than I should be. At some point, though, and you know what, I've been hammered myself this summer for people looking to live or be somewhere. Why can't I just be where you are? And I recognize it as a problem in our community that there isn't enough modern, affordable housing. Looking at a house here that was built in 1905, I would think that this would be an improvement for a moldering, older piece of property, and I think the upgrades would be beneficial to the neighborhoods. You're talking 3 units vice 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms is a family, mom, dad,
Parking, cars, everything?
and kids, so, 6 people. But I'm not feeling that this is the design of this project, is to have everybody over there.
so that would be the first finding of fact.
And, Mr. Chairman, can we identify which of the 3 applications this discussion is?
Yeah, that's a good
pertinent
one.
to?
Okay.
We're kinda talking about all of them at the same
Yeah.
time.
I know, but for
Sure, it's
the
point.
findings and for the vote, it really does need to be
Yeah.
separate.
Okay, we'll go in
So
order.
The first one that's listed is the special
Special
exception
exception,
to allow a multifamily use.
In a single-family residence.
RS?
I believe it is.
Now,
RG,
RG?
yes. And in that district, in order to have multifamily, a special exception
Special
is
exception, right,
required.
that's what I saw.
And the whole neighborhood is multifamily from
Yes.
what I saw.
Yeah, every building on that Longe
It
and,
looked that way.
Jameson, they were all multifamilies.
I see 3 separate units being beneficial to the city versus fixing the house into a 4-bedroom, single unit. I think everybody wins if we could get this through. So I would like to entertain a motion to grant the special exception for 11 Jameson Street.
Where in these do we address the fact that it's a private right-of-way place?
Let the
an
planning board
accepted-
worry about that.
Yeah,
An
the planning board.
accepted street?
Yeah.
As long as it's in the notes.
So granting the variance would not be contrary to the public.
Special exception, Your Honor.
Special exemption.
Ah, thank you.
I get it.
Thank you. It is authorized for use in this area. It wouldn't cause any undue traffic congestion, basically because the people don't drive. It'd probably be less than having a 3-bedroom home. It won't overload any public utilities. It's not an excessive demand for police or fire protection.
Is that, in fact, does it have sewer and water there?
It would have to. Again, planning.
And the location is appropriate for the requested use. So those are the findings of fact. I'm looking for a motion from somebody.
Mr. Chair, you still have any special provisions for the use set forth in this chapter are fulfilled?
I think the only thing I'd like to see is just that it is included, that there's 2 parking spaces, and make sure they say that there's 2 parking spaces for however that they are used. And I'd also like to include a note to the planning board to look at that right-of-way, that pedestrian walking way right-of-way, just to reevaluate and make sure that it is what they want it to be. And if it isn't, can they take it off? Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a motion?
Oh, you may,
No, I was just helping with this criteria.
So the last one, the only one that I don't have anything for is any special provisions for the use of this, and is that the only?
I forgot
That
nothing.
was a special
Yeah.
provision.
Okay, you're good, sorry about that.
Thank you, Scott. So Richard, will you make that motion?
I make that motion then,
We have a motion.
as you said.
I'm looking for a second.
Second for the special exception.
Any further discussion about that? All in favor? Opposed? It's 4-1.
No, 5-1, 5.
Oh.
5 to nothing.
I thought you were opposed, Roland, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was
You were
so
late with your
late.
hand.
He was a little slow.
He was just late.
I'll let you slide. Be quicker next time. You never make it in an auction.
You know, but-
Thank you, folks, for pushing that through. Moving right along, 11 Jameson Street, applicant is seeking a variance to allow 3 residential units where a half a unit is allowed. We've already hashed this over.
I might-
It's- It's good for that neighborhood. I think it'll be tremendous benefit to the neighborhood and the 3 people that live there.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this variance, the number, I'm looking at 0094?
0095.
0095.
Here it is.
Okay, oh, I was
It's
on the
this
wrong
one.
Yeah, I got that, I was looking at the parking lot. As granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, because it is, we do need housing. The spirit of the ordinance is observed as we are controlling what is being built there. Granting the variance would do substantial justice simply because we are taking a decrepit building and making it good and usable again for the listed purpose. And it will, there's no evidence either property values will go up or down, but I suspect that everybody would be happy to have a not vacant building there.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the variance? 5-0, thank you.
Parking.
Moving right along. 11 Jameson Street, applicant seeks a variance
Just that one. That's,
to
just did this one.
reduce the parking requirement. And we've hashed this one over quite a bit too. I don't believe parking will be an issue on this building. Plain and simple. Chances are, nobody that lives there is gonna drive, and if they have a counselor or case manager that stops by once a week or once a month, that's not a big issue.
Which is this
I'm gonna give it a go.
one? Screwed up.
I'm gonna give it a go.
Yeah.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept variance 0094. The granting the variance would not be contrary to the public, as again, it will provide housing that is needed. The spirit of the ordinance is observed as parking-wise, that we are creating somewhat of a unique parking situation for tenants that do not drive. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it again will provide housing, needed housing for our city. And there is no evidence that the values of the surrounding properties will go up or down. But again, I believe that everybody will be happy to have a not vacant building in their backyard.
Second.
Thank you, Roland. Any further discussion on the parking variance? All in favor? 5-0, thank you. Thank you, ladies. All right, next up is 430 Pleasant Street. Is that applicant here?
Yes.
Come on up, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Jason Truffrey?
Last name again, Jason?
Truffrey?
How can we help you here, Jason?
I am in hopes to purchase a new shed and put it to the back of my property line, and rear setback is 15, and I'm asking to set it off at 5 feet. Reason being, if I bring it out to the 15, that area of my yard is kind of the main thoroughway for the kids play. As you get closer to my house, it slopes down. So, right now, they can kick the soccer ball, football, baseball in that area. And if the shed is set the 15 feet off, that'll, crowd into that space. So I was hoping to get a variance to set it 5 feet off the back line.
How big is the shed?
12 by 22.
I drove past the property. Is it all fenced in?
It is,
So your shed would be within your fence?
yes.
Jason, is there a shed there now to the left of the house?
There is. It's a 8 by 10 that was there when we purchased.
And that's going to remain?
Excuse me?
That's going to remain?
Yes, that was the plan.
So there'll be a multiplicity of sheds
Just the two
in the house?
in the house.
Is that about the size of a one-car garage?
Say that again?
Is that about the size of a one-car garage, 12 by 22?
A small one.
Well, it depends on who builds the garage. I mean, we have a garage at the house and it's smaller. You know, we can barely know the size of the vehicles today. But, so,
So this is not going to be converted into a garage?
oh, no. Storage and workspace. Yep. No, you can't access the backyard anyway
Oh,
with
okay.
a vehicle. It's all fenced in.
Your whole yard is fenced in?
Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Jason, have a seat for a moment. And I'll open a public hearing. Are there any neighbors or other residents that would like to speak for or against this application? That being said, at 7:21, we'll close the public comment. Bring it to the board for discussion.
Question, is there a table that says what size buildings, is this an accessory building? I'm not sure exactly what this would be. Is there a table or chart that says what is allowed up to a certain size? 12 by 22 is pretty big
Yeah,
for a shed.
that's bigger than tiny house.
Yeah.
Tiny house, 420.
And typically, I think it's if it's, it's a floating building and it's not permanent. I was just curious, do you know?
Not in the city's ordinance,
Not in
no.
the city's ordinance.
No,
Okay.
I'm just doing the math right now. He's probably gonna have to pull a building permit. That would be the only issue.
Right, yeah. So I drove through the neighborhood, it's inaccessible, he could never use it as a garage, it's kind of, his house is kind of high off the road, and the backyard is contained. There are very few they're all single-family homes. What I could see from the road, it seemed there were no other accessory buildings that were put within the property setback anywhere that I could see from the road. And on the tax maps, I see one small shed within that whole community. But generally speaking, there are no places that have asked for a variance for a building in the setback.
The rear abutters were properly notified?
And it's within the fence.
Does,
264 square feet.
right. Does the city, so would the city, to have two accessory buildings? So he's gonna keep his one shed of 80 square feet, and he's going to have the second shed of 200 and,
I don't
22.
believe that's an issue, but let me just double check.
Is that Sarah Circle, the street in the back?
I believe a little further down is the entryway to Sarah Circle. Either there's two there.
It's
One Sarah Circle and then there's another one,
There's-
similar style.
Havenwood Drive. It's Havenwood Drive. and then-
Havenwood, okay.
And then Sarah is off the backside. So directly to the rear boundary is the rear boundary of somebody on Sarah.
It looks like the house to the north has a tool shed
Yeah,
close
I
to
see
the
that
boundary
there. Yeah,
line
yeah,
also.
I'm seeing that here now, yeah, a little teeny one. Okay. Yep. And it's a thickly wooded area.
Yeah, I drove by. Since it's fenced in, I don't see the harm.
Yeah, there's nothing specific in the zoning ordinance about sheds.
Okay, fair enough then.
Well, it's just a little workshop, utility building, whatever we could call it. There's not a limit to what you can have, I
Sure.
guess.
Well, my thought is, I'm not a big general fan of encroachment, but none of the neighbors have said no, and so I'm inclined to say yes. His home is, has a drive-under garage in the front, so he would have a very tiny basement and on the green.
Jason, how tall is the building gonna be?
I believe it'll be 10.
8-foot walls with a slight peak, or?
It's a gambrel.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't,
What's the hardship?
There isn't one, I don't see.
I think the hardship would be storage space.
The hardship really is related to something that's unique about the property and its environment.
The hardship could be
Like a
the
sloping
kids'
area.
playground. You don't wanna disturb the kids' playground.
Hardship
Kinda
in the-
pushing it.
Hardship in the land, maybe it would be like a slope in the road, so that, well, I think he indicated that is the problem with this one.
No, what he said is, well, for storage and for a small shop area, that's what he asked for. And the small home and the garage underneath is not much storage space for a family. That's where I see the hardship. Where the relief for that hardship in this particular.
You do have a sketch included in your packet that
Yep.
shows the approximate location.
Did you see this one?
I did.
It's supposed to be 15 feet in the back and only 10 on the side. That seems unusual. That's correct? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
How far off is that other shed? How close is that to the property line?
That other shed is right on the property line,
So it's right against the fence.
on, for the left hand, looking at the house.
I don't see it in the photo here, the other shed. Is it hidden under the tree?
Is that it?
No.
No, it's right, it's not on this drawing. It would be right there.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just not on the drawing.
it would be right here.
So Mike, here's
just
the,
not on the drawing.
here's the city tax map.
Ah.
The road is where the blue is here, so
Right.
that's the
Mhm.
road. So it's right there. There's you don't see the
Is
closure.
it hidden under the tree in this photo?
It's behind the fence.
Yeah, there is a tree
Yeah.
that shadows it.
I see. Because you don't see it in the overhead photo.
I think that photo is old. Is it possible?
It's about
Oh,
4 feet back from that vinyl fence on the left, going right up. You know,
Uh-huh.
if it's a problem with it remaining, I don't have a problem getting rid of it,
What, the older one?
yeah.
That would be relief.
Okay, sure. Is there a way to check to see if there was a variance requested for the placement of this first shed? Is there a way to check in
If
the property file?
If one exists in the property file, it should be there.
Right.
Or it could be pre-existing.
Do you have access to that where you are now?
I don't wanna jeopardize the feed.
Understood, okay.
Well, let's entertain a motion.
I'll say I'm not a big fan of pressing right up against it. If this is a piece of property that's already ensconced by a fence, and he's willing to remove the older building, I would support it.
Is that acceptable, Jason?
Yes.
Take the shed down that's on the property line?
Yep.
And we give you a 5 foot, we give you a variance for a 5 feet encroachment.
Well, he's looking
No.
for 5 foot
Actually,
setback.
yes,
Yeah,
5
5
foot
foot
setback,
setback,
5 foot
10 foot.
setback.
So the
Encroachment.
the shed that's there right now is right here. It's not in this photograph.
Make a motion, Mike.
Make a motion to accept application 2023-0096, looking for a variance for a setback for a shed. This is on 430 Pleasant Street in Laconia, New Hampshire. And I need my,
This is a photo right here of that side, see it right here. So,
in the variance, what do we what's our variance? Or what's the code that we're varying from? I don't see that written right here. Setbacks,
setback, yes.
but it,
It is.
235?
It is,
am I just not seeing it?
From this direction,
section 235, attachment 3,
from this direction here. So it
table
looks-
2, table of dimensional requirements.
If we could enter that into our, nice. Okay, so we're looking to place a 12 by 22 foot shed. This says 8 foot into the rear setback. Is this, is the setback 15 feet, then it's actually gonna be 10 feet into it
Yes,
with a 5 foot
right.
remnant? New construction shed to be used for storage, and it's fully placed on their property. Does not create an eyesore. In fact, it could be better if the old shed goes. And,
Well, that would have to be part of the motion, either it does or it doesn't.
it does go. It does go. And, this would, in the removal of the older shed, they would still be able to retain the use of their main space and, not make the backyard so crowded with the removal of the old shed. We're not crossing on anybody else's property, and once again, this is a property that is surrounded by a fence. And, I would say that it does not impact anybody else. It's reasonable to, because storage is always a problem here. And, once again, this, okay, I see how it is. So it alleviate the impact on their property and allow for recreation of the youth.
Thank you, Mike. We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jane. Further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Very good, Jason.
Thank you.
Build it.
Good luck.
Build it and they will come.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, who was the second on that one? Was it?
Jane
I did.
seconded it, and it was 5-0.
Thank you, Jane.
Moving right along, we have 7 Baker Street. Applicant is seeking a variance to allow for 8 units where 7 currently exist.
Good evening, I'm Phil Briard here for Stacy Casala. She's the owner of Lake Life Inn, which is a small existing hotel at this location. Those of you that are familiar with Weirs Beach are
probably seen it. It's a small hotel in that area. We're here for a
Just a point of note, do we have some documentation that verifies that he's allowed to speak for the owner? Do we have something in hand?
Kathy must have something.
Well, I'm a lawyer
He's a
licensed to
real estate
practice
lawyer.
law in New Hampshire. I've been
Well-
hired by Stacy Casala, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
actually,
asking for some documentation on that, that's all.
there's no documentation
I can vouch for him.
required. I did, on the site plan application, I did submit the condominium declaration for the planning board. I've been corresponding with the staff on that. I've not ever been aware, I guess maybe.
You know, but pardon me,
Yeah,
she should have put you down as an agent on the application,
yes, she did. do
right?
that.
And I'm just,
And I do want you to know, she wasn't planning on being in this situation. She had long-term plans she's got a permit to hike Mount McGinley, so she really wanted to be here herself. She's been doing this herself. I did help her with the condominium document, but sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She got a permit to do that, and because I helped her with the condominium document, she asked if I could come to this meeting and also come to the planning board meeting tomorrow.
I can vouch for Mr. Bridgard. I've known him for years.
So just,
And also my filing last month led to this as well. I'm sure Stacy would be here if she could. Rescheduling was a bit of a snafu for her as well.
if it's possible that she could submit something,
Well, I don't think she's in the area, I think
No,
she's.
I
I could
understand.
submit something tomorrow, but I could,
Yep.
I mean,
it's just a point of note. We did-
well,
we-
it's
always-
well noted.
Whenever anybody speaks for someone else, we ask for,
I could
documentation,
run
that's all.
downstairs quickly and check to see if you're listed as the agent on the planning board application.
I'm not.
You're not.
She did
Oh,
that,
that's
she
gonna
did
be
did these on, she did these
yeah,
on.
you're gonna have to clear it ahead.
I mean, just relative to our board, I mean, how do we know that he is speaking for, I mean, we will take him at his word, but how do we know?
And we've not proceeded right at this point before. Because of the
His
documentation.
name anywhere.
She's in California right now, so it's not
Oh, I
like
know.
she can do it.
Yeah, we get that.
I'll be following her on her climb.
So, are we gonna let Attorney Billy continue?
I don't know, what do you guys think?
I would say yes. I trust him and I trust the lady that made the application.
And if there's any
Sure,
way to
wants
get
Phil
this
to
in, you're gonna
represent.
want it for planning board also. if
And
there's
that way
any-
we could move right along tonight.
Yep, I am,
I'm okay with that.
I'm
Is there
okay.
any
I
objection?
could make a
Attorney Delibes.
suggestion.
All right,
They could, make it if the board moves to grant the approval, it is subject to receiving,
receipt of said document.
something in writing from the property owner authorizing.
Phil Brouillard to act on her
Right.
behalf.
That's
Because we'll have
reasonable.
to do that again
Yeah.
tomorrow night.
That's reasonable, Kathy. Thank you for the
Yeah, just as-
suggestion.
Because she's not gonna do anything until she gets back anyway.
Well, just as long as it's subject to her being able to do it when she gets back, because she certainly can't
Right.
do it right
No,
now.
no, no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I mean.
yeah.
And that way we're covered. So when she
That's,
gets back,
I have
she
no,
can
I have no
that
problem. I was just trying to
too. Yeah,
do her
I understand,
service.
and we're gonna run into the same issue with planning board tomorrow night, so I'm trying to
Okay.
think ahead how we can deal with it.
Well, better that came up tonight then.
So we would take a fax copy of the letter from her?
No, I think we can wait till she comes back.
Oh, okay.
Because she's gonna have to sign off on documents for them to be
Okay.
recorded at the registry of deeds if this gets approved.
And I have had some supporting effort in this matter. I've prepared the condominium declaration and I've emailed it to Kathy, and she and I have corresponded on it.
Yeah.
Are we scheduling another meeting this month?
Just our regular
Yes.
meeting, our regular
Yeah.
meeting in 2 weeks.
Right, in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So we got another meeting in 2 weeks?
Well, I think
There's a
that-
planning board meeting tomorrow night on
Right.
this matter.
Oh, I'm sorry, well, that's what they were speaking of. They were speaking of the planning board meeting.
I know
tomorrow.
they were.
Okay, all right.
I'm
I-
just saying
I
this
would be
board has another
comfortable
meeting.
accepting written authorization from her after the fact, authorizing Attorney Brulard to speak, on her behalf.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You guys know him and know,
Oh, yeah.
and that's fine. It's,
Very
to
good.
to me,
Yes.
he's an unknown, so that's fine. I will take
He
you
used
guys.
to
Okay.
live in my neighborhood.
All right, proceed.
Go ahead, Phil.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
basically, this is a variance, for, eight unit. And I think Kathy could probably speak to how this sort of crept up behind us. It was originally kind of condominiumizing 7 units, but then when the plans came through, there's an owner's unit on the top. And I believe that's when Kathy told Stacy that she would need to come for this density variant. Am I properly representing that,
Yes,
ma'am?
you are.
Okay. And so we are here for a density variance. Basically, this is at the Weirs, one of the most dense places in the city. These units are a 7-unit motel with a previously 8th unit on the top floor that's previously used as a manager's quarters. The purpose of this variance is to allow the maximum residential density, to allow 8 units on this very, very small piece of property. The building basically covers the property. However, this property does have 12 parking spots that it bought, so when it's condominiumized, there is 12 parking spots there, so each unit has 1.5 parking spots per unit. So I just want to take that out of the consideration so the board knows that this property does have parking.
Do they own that parking?
Yes, they own,
Yep.
well, they don't own the parking, but it's in their deed and they paid for it. It's an easement,
It's deeded
permanent easement.
permanently.
Okay.
It's probably some of the best parking in that area.
If you live
Who pays the taxes on the parking lot? The hotel or the owner of the lot? Very interesting.
I think the hotel does, but I don't know if there's, get some cost-sharing arrangements. I read the deed and I don't see anything about that in there. So that's what the variance is about. So I'm gonna address the criteria. It would not be contrary to the public interest because multifamily is allowed in the CR zone. These units are gonna create 5 2-bedroom apartments, a 1-bedroom apartment, and a 1-bedroom manager's quarters. These are gonna be condominiumized, and they're hoping to be sold to local people. These are gonna be very affordable units. A lot of people started renting in the Weirs when they started out. Now that they would be able to purchase a unit. This property will be able to function as it has as a hotel, but actually, when the owners use the property, I believe it will be more gently used, and it'll be more orderly, and it'll be it won't be out of character with the neighborhood, and in fact, will be more in character with the other folks that come up for the weekend that are actually owners. There would be no excessive demand for police, fire, or schools. I submit to you that that demand is higher for a hotel than it is for a condominium. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the function of the building will change only the use of it as a hotel as far as a private residence for the owners of the building. There will be less people using the building as turnover is greater as a hotel than it is. There is a need for affordable housing under the master plan, and this creates affordable units in the city of Laconia in a dense, already dense, popular spot for that type of housing. This property also has deeded rights to go down to the end of the street and use the beach, so it is a nice little, it's gonna be a nice little gem and a credit to the community. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it would allow for the utilization of the building as it's currently constituted. There would be no excessive demand for police, fire, schools. It's not out of character in the neighborhood. The surrounding properties would not see a diminished in value. They would see the property upgraded. They would see a consistent, better class of person that's there all the time, owners that have pride of ownership and are more concerned with their civic responsibilities and behaving as normal tenants rather than people that are just renting a room for a weekend or such. Unnecessary hardship is basically there's no fair and substantial relationship that exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to the property, because there was already 8 units in this non-conforming building. There was the owner's apartment, and then there was the 7 units. So there's basically no change in the property or the number of units. And it allows the person to use, it's a reasonable one because the proposed use will add affordable residential housing to the area, which is greatly needed. This property is very unique because the building is basically on the lot, and so it is a hardship, you know, related to the land. And I think we can agree by seeking out and paying for off-site parking, the owner has done everything they can to cover their own parking need in a very responsible manner. And I think that the fact that this has had these units for probably 100 years is evidence that there's no real problems with the building. It's still there, it's still operating. And I believe that the fact that it will not do anything but add affordable housing, add affordable residential housing to an area where it's greatly needed. The foot traffic and the impact on the area will be decreased as the property will no longer be a commercial hotel. And if there's any other questions, I would be pleased to answer them. And I do also wish to say that we are, and I believe Kathy would agree, that the city is studying different density models than what's currently available. And there are other zones in the city, particularly the UC, that's zoned for 20 units an acre. And the commercial resort is still at 6, and the residential apartment's still at 9. And I think that probably in that coming revisions that there will be density increases. And in this particular case, it's already there. The unit is already there, the building is already there. So I think that, you know, the master plan for the city mentions in several places the need for affordable mid-market pricing houses for residents who work or are moving into the area as teachers, policemen, firefighter, nurses, and other paid professionals, as well as factory and construction workers. This conventional priced property, based on its nature, is more affordable and allows people that buy there to have a parking spot and to have beach rights on Lake Winnipesaukee. So I think it's a nice little project, and it'll be a credit to the city. Any questions I can answer or anything like that?
Go ahead. Whether may I? So there's no extra addition going on to the building. It's already 8 units, 7 which have previously been leased, you know, weekly or weekendly. So there's no structural change on the outside or addition like that.
None.
And I just have to ask the board, and I understand we're in resort commercial. So if someone buys 3 of these units, are they able to Airbnb them by right?
We didn't allow that in the condo documents, Mike.
There you go.
The rentals are for 30 days. So I mean, I guess you could Airbnb it for 30 days, but that's not really your typical Airbnb.
Right. No, and, you know, I know it's almost
that's
a
not-
redundant question because we have rented it regularly.
One important note that I want you to know is Stacy's gonna live here. She's not moving.
Yeah.
So she's gonna pick very carefully who she wants to live with
Her
her, so,
neighbors.
yeah.
Are there any improvements?
Open year-round now?
Good question.
Yeah.
I think they are.
Will there be any,
She lives there year-round. She lives in the property.
will there be any substantial improvements on the building? Unknown.
Well, I mean, they're gonna update the inside, you know,
So
new
you-
flooring. I mean, it's gonna be updated. I mean, it's not gonna be completely rebuilt,
Understood,
yeah.
No changes to the outside, but
No,
just
no.
improved on the inside?
Correct, yeah. And of course, Stacy's gonna have to meet all the current, you know, there's gonna have to be CO2 detectors, smoke detectors, and all that stuff, you know.
Very good, Phil. You could relax for a moment, and we'll bring it to the board for discussion.
Public?
Oh, let me sit down.
I'm sorry, yeah.
People from the public.
Thank you for reminding me. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak for or against this variance application? Come on up, James.
James Poisson, Laconia, New Hampshire, just want to be in favor of it. It's something that contributes to the city of Laconia on the tax basis. I'm 100% in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for your comments. Anybody else? Nobody's in the room. Let's bring it to the board for discussion.
It is the Weirs. It's,
Weirs.
it is the Weirs. And it's been used in this manner with a manager in situ for some time. And I don't see where it overly impacts the neighborhood or the community.
I just want to go on record as saying, every time we lose a hotel to condominiums, it reduces our weekly visitors. That reduces the people who go to restaurants, movies, fun spot, everything else.
But you
We
may,
can't stop them from doing it, but
The other side of the blade.
they're falling, you know, Proctor's, the Easy Inn, or Lazy E. They're all, these hotels that we're having, you know, 30 or 40 people come every weekend, is coming to an end. And it's detrimental to retail restaurant establishments.
but on the other side of that blade is that someone who's working at those jobs, which they're not paying huge money for, still has potentially the ability to live and work in their neighborhood and community.
And, you know, yes, you're taking about short-term rentals, whether it be hotel or Airbnb, you're taking some of those away, but you are also adding something else that contributes to the community in just a different way, that's all.
And
But your point is noted.
yeah, and the condo docs allow them to rent it for 30 days. So it can
Well,
still
it's
have
just,
some-
you know,
and it's
we
gonna
keep
help
losing
the
our
city
hotels.
economically with taxes.
And with the way the city council is with short-term rentals, there's gonna be no place for vacationers to stay. We're inching that way.
Sure.
But I have no objections to 8 units over the 7 because it's always been 8 units, so
Perfect.
I will entertain a motion.
I have a question, Ms. Director. Ms. Director.
Oh, staff
Question.
recommendations.
So is the only reason why we have this before us is simply because of the change from in hotel, whatever classification that is, to condominiums?
Resident,
That's the
yes.
only reason why? Okay. Okay, I'm complete, thank you.
Right.
So, as Attorney Bulliard explained all the criteria for a variance, seems to have covered it quite well. I'll entertain a motion from one of the members.
I make a motion that that for variance number
Right here.
0097, some big have, I make a motion that we accept this variance or approve this variance because granting of the variance is not contrary to the public, as is spoken of. It is making a short-term into a long-term condominium, which is good for the community. The spirit of the ordinance is, we are managing our guests and our residents in a more responsible way. And I think that that is the spirit of the ordinance. Granted, the variance would do substantial justice simply because it gives more clarity to the people staying in that area. The values, there's no indication whether the property values would go up or down, but I'm sure that there's no evidence of. And the hardship being that, the hardship,
There's no hardship.
it is giving relief from the hardship of short-term rental to the benefits of ownership. I think that that would be the hardship that would be mitigated.
Very good, Richard.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
5-0.
Oh, did you wanna add a condition to that, that we have,
Some
Yeah, that's right.
some documentation.
So said.
Showing him as agent.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
No problem with documentation.
I'm sure it won't be.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Very good.
Great.
Okay.
Kathy, I have, we have to finish the meeting first before I can ask her a question, because it has nothing to do with the meeting.
James, there's still openings on the planning board.
No, I just hate to say thank you all for all you do, because it's a thankless, tough job. And
Do you want to be on the planning board with us?
I don't think I'm
You
tough
mean
enough.
CBA?
CBA.
I think you guys are doing a bang-up job. Scott's fantastic. I wanted to also thank Kathy for joining the city of Laconia. You guys are pretty lucky overall, and that's all I wish to say.
Thank you,
Let's hear it.
James. It's nice to hear good comments.
Thank you for your input.
And so now we have to close the meeting.
Any new business? Old business?
I had two things,
Yeah.
or one good question.
Before or after, during or after the meeting.
Can be after?
Yep, me too.
Your choice. I mean,
So,
I move we adjourn.
Second?
all in favor?
All right.
Call the meeting to an end at 7:57.
Holy cow. And we approved everything. That's a first.
Well, there wasn't anything really contentious.